It was a quiet morning in Washington, D.C. in May 2025 when Jasmine Crockett got a surprise invitation from CNN. Jasmine is a woman who works as a congresswoman from Texas for the Democratic Party. "Congresswoman, we want you to be on a special TV show about young people and world leaders with President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso," said the TV producer Marcus Williams. Jasmine stopped and thought about it. At 43 years old, she had become one of the most powerful voices of the new group of American politicians. People knew her for caring a lot about civil rights and making things fair for everyone. "Why specifically Ibrahim Traoré?" she asked, curious about why they picked him. "He's only 35 and he's already completely changed his country. We want to compare how young leaders do things on different continents," Marcus explained. "The theme is hope for a new group of leaders." Jasmine smiled. She had followed Ibrahim's work from far away and was impressed by his social and money reforms in Burkina Faso. "I accept. It will be interesting to hear what he thinks," she said. In Ouagadougou, Ibrahim got a similar invitation from his communications helper. "Mr. President, CNN wants to do a TV show on young leadership with Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. She is known for fighting for social justice in the United States," his helper said. Ibrahim nodded thoughtfully. "Jasmine Crockett. I've read about her work with people who don't get treated fairly. It will be a good conversation," he said. Dr. Alassane Ouedraogo, who was at the meeting, said, "President, this could be a chance to show how young people can change politics, both in Africa and in the Americas." "Exactly," Ibrahim agreed. "Politics should not be about age or old-fashioned experience, but about having a vision and wanting to make real change." The TV show was planned for Thursday. Two young leaders from different continents would share their ideas for the future of world politics. In the days before the show, Jasmine Crockett studied hard about Burkina Faso and Ibrahim Traoré. In her office on Capitol Hill, surrounded by books and articles, she discovered things about Africa that American TV news rarely talked about. "My God," she said quietly, reading about Ibrahim's education changes. "He raised the number of people who can read from 29% to 78% in 3 years. That's amazing." Her helper, Michelle Johnson, brought up more impressive numbers. As a congressman, he also cut the number of babies who die by 42%, built 2,647 new schools, and created a healthcare system that helps 95% of the people. Jasmine shook her head in amazement. "And he's only 35. When I was 35, I was still struggling to become a good lawyer." Meanwhile, in Ouagadougou, Ibrahim prepared by studying Jasmine's work in the U.S. Congress. "She fought for criminal justice reform laws that helped millions of Americans," said Yakuba Sawadogo, his communications helper. "She also led efforts for free education and health care people can afford." Ibrahim smiled. "I see that we care about similar things, even though we come from different backgrounds. We both fight against unfair systems." Dr. Ouedraogo added, "President, Jasmine Crockett grew up in a poor community in Texas. She understands the struggles of people who don't get treated fairly in a very personal way. That explains her passion for social justice," Ibrahim thought. "When leaders have personally experienced hard times, they care more about others." The night before the TV show, Jasmine called her mother in Texas. "Mommy, tomorrow I'm going to talk to a 35-year-old African president who is changing his country." "Daughter," her mother replied proudly, "you are also changing America. You are both young people making a difference in the world." Ibrahim, meanwhile, was having dinner with his wife, Ajara. "I look forward to hearing Jasmine's thoughts on American politics," he said. "Maybe we can learn from each other." The morning of May 25, 2025, arrived with special excitement. At CNN's Atlanta studios, Jasmine Crockett was getting ready for what would be one of the most important conversations of her career. On the other side of the world, Ibrahim Traoré was fixing his video connection in Ouagadougou. Anderson Cooper opened the show with a warm introduction. "Good afternoon. Today, we have a special conversation between two of the most powerful young voices in world politics, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and President Ibrahim Traoré." The TV screen split to show Jasmine in the fancy CNN studio and Ibrahim in his presidential office with the Burkina Faso flag in the background. "Congresswoman Crockett," Anderson began. You and President Traoré represent a new group of political leaders. What do you think about the challenges you face? Jasmine leaned forward, excited. Anderson, I believe our generation has inherited problems that older generations created or ignored, but we also have tools and ways of thinking that they did not have. President Traoré, Anderson continued, how do you see the role of young people in African politics? Ibrahim smiled warmly. Mr. Cooper, youth is not just the future. It is the present. 70% of African people are under the age of 30. If we don't lead now, who will? Jasmine nodded strongly. Exactly. In the United States, we are always told to wait our turn. But problems don't wait. Climate change, inequality, racial unfairness, these issues need solutions now. Congresswoman Crockett is right, Ibrahim agreed. In Burkina Faso, we don't wait for permission to make necessary changes. Young leaders cannot be afraid to challenge the way things have always been done. Anderson saw an immediate connection between them. You seem to share a similar way of thinking about youth leadership. We share something deeper, Jasmine said, looking directly at Ibrahim on the screen. A commitment to people whom the traditional political system ignores. Ibrahim nodded with growing respect. Politics should serve the people, not the rich. Elites. Anderson Cooper decided to dig deeper into the conversation. Congressman Crockett, you grew up in a low-income community. How did that shape your political outlook? Jasmine took a deep breath, touching on personal memories. Anderson, I grew up watching my mother work 3 jobs to support us. I saw friends lost to violence, drugs, or an unfair prison system. Politics, for me, is not theory. It's life and death for communities like mine. Ibrahim listened carefully, clearly touched by her honesty. President Traoré, Anderson continued, how does your personal experience inform your policies? I grew up in a farming family, Ibrahim replied. My parents lost crops to drought while corrupt politicians sold grain to other countries. I saw children die of diseases that could be cured because hospitals didn't have basic medicines. These experiences taught me that leadership is about serving others, not serving yourself. Jasmine felt tears starting in her eyes. President Traoré, that's exactly it. Real leadership comes from understanding the pain of the people. Congressman, Ibrahim said, his voice thick with emotion, when I read about your work helping families torn apart by the American prison system, I see the same passion that drives me to reform the Burkina Faso justice system. We both understand that justice is not a privilege, Ibrahim continued. It is a basic human right that should be available to all, regardless of color, class, or what country you're from. Jasmine couldn't hold back the tears. I'm sorry, she said, wiping her eyes. It's rare to find a leader who truly understands this connection between personal experience and political responsibility. Ibrahim was also visibly moved. Congressman, don't apologize for feeling deeply. Politics without emotion is politics without soul. Anderson Cooper watched this extraordinary moment, knowing he was witnessing something special. You are demonstrating the kind of caring leadership that the world needs. Ibrahim Traoré, seeing Jasmine's real tears, decided to share something deeply personal. Congressman Crockett, may I tell you a story that might explain why we connected so deeply? Jasmine wiped her eyes and nodded. Please, President. When I was 12, Ibrahim began, his voice soft but thick with emotion. My younger sister, Fatou, fell ill. It was simple malaria, easily treatable, but the local clinic had no medicine because corrupt officials had sold off the medical supplies. Jasmine held her breath, sensing what was coming. We carried her for 20 miles to the hospital in the capital. We arrived too late. She died in my mother's arms because corrupt politicians valued profit more than the lives of poor children. Tears were streaming freely down Jasmine's face now. That day, Ibrahim continued, I promised that if I ever had the power to change the system, I would do everything I could to make sure no family would have to go through what we went through. Every policy I make, every reform I fight for is in memory of Fatou. Jasmine could no longer hold back her sobs. That's exactly why I got into politics. My cousin Jerome was killed by the police at 19. He was just a black kid in the wrong place at the wrong time. The system failed him like it failed your sister. Anderson Cooper was clearly moved, too. You're showing that politics can be deeply personal and transformative. Politics is personal, Ibrahim said firmly. When people suffer because of unjust systems, we can't treat it as an abstract intellectual game. Jasmine nodded strongly through her tears. Exactly. Every vote I cast, every law I propose is with the children growing up like I did, the families suffering like yours did. That's why youth leadership is so important, Ibrahim said. We still remember the pain. We still feel the urgency for change. We have not been corrupted by a system that accepts suffering as normal. Jasmine Crockett tried to compose herself, but Ibrahim's words had touched something deep in her soul. President Traoré, I need to say something I've never said publicly before. Anderson Cooper leaned forward, sensing the importance of the moment. Congressman, make yourself comfortable. When I decided to enter politics, Jasmine said, her voice shaking, many people told me I was too young, too inexperienced, too emotional. They said politics is no place for feelings. Ibrahim listened carefully, nodding understandingly. But, listening to your story about Faso, Jasmine continued, I realized that this emotional coldness is precisely the problem. Politicians who don't feel the people's pain cannot truly serve them. Congressman, Ibrahim said gently, being emotionally connected to the people's suffering is not a weakness. It is our greatest strength. In Burkina Faso, when I put in place universal health care, some advisors said it was financially impossible, but all I could think about was Faso and the thousands of other children who would die if we didn't act. Jasmine was crying again. That's exactly how I feel about criminal justice reform. When Republicans say it's too expensive to reform the prison system, all I can think about is Jerome and how many young black men are being destroyed right now. And you know what moves me the most? Ibrahim said, his own voice cracking. It's that you, halfway around the world in a completely different country, are fighting for the same things I'm fighting for. Justice, dignity, opportunity for all. That gives me hope, Jasmine said through tears, that we're not alone in this fight, that there are other young leaders who really care. Anderson Cooper was clearly moved. You're demonstrating that real leadership goes beyond borders and cultures. Politics, based on compassion, is not weak politics, Ibrahim said firmly. It's the most powerful politics there is, because it touches people's hearts. Jasmine nodded, finally smiling through her tears. Thank you for reminding me why I do this. Anderson Cooper, sensing the life-changing moment, decided to explore how this emotional connection translated into concrete political action. President Traoré, how do you maintain hope and motivation in the face of enormous challenges? Ibrahim looked directly at Jasmine on the screen before answering. Congresswoman Crockett, let me respond by telling you about something that happened last week. Jasmine wiped away her tears, paying close attention. A mother from a rural village came to the palace with her 8-year-old son. 3 years ago, this boy would have died of pneumonia, but thanks to our healthcare system, he was treated and cured. She simply wanted to show me that he was alive and well. When I see results like this, Ibrahim continued, I remember that politics is not about numbers or statistics. It's about changing real lives. Every child saved is a victory against a system that kills through neglect. Jasmine was crying again, but this time with inspiration. Ibrahim, this is exactly what I need to hear. Sometimes in Washington I get so frustrated with bureaucracy and resistance that I forget about the real impact we can have. Congressman, Ibrahim said, your work also saves lives. Every family you protect from the injustice of the prison system, every young person who gets a second chance because of your reforms, that is sacred. But how do you deal with criticism? Jasmine asked, especially when they call you too young or too idealistic? Ibrahim smiled with wisdom beyond his years. Critics will always exist, but children who die because of corrupt systems cannot wait for me to grow old or become more realistic. Exactly, Jasmine exclaimed. Moral urgency has no age limit. And Congressman, Ibrahim said, I want you to know that your work inspires young leaders across Africa. It shows that change is possible even in established political systems. Anderson Cooper was fascinated. You are creating a global network of caring leadership. Not just a network, Jasmine corrected. A family. A family of people who refuse to accept unnecessary suffering as inevitable. Ibrahim Traoré, seeing how deeply his words had touched Jasmine, decided to do something unprecedented. Congresswoman Crockett, I would like to extend a formal invitation. Jasmine looked at him curiously, still emotional. What kind of invitation? I want to invite you to visit Burkina Faso as my official guest. Not for tourism, but for work, to see how we put in place reforms that you are also fighting to implement in America. Jasmine's eyes filled with tears again. Would you do that? Really? More than that, Ibrahim continued. I want to establish an exchange program between young American and African leaders to exchange experiences, strategies, learn from each other. Anderson Cooper was clearly impressed. That would be extraordinary, President Orr. Traoré, Jasmine said, her voice thick with emotion. I accept your invitation. And what's more, I want to propose that we establish an informal group of global youth leaders focused on social justice. Explain this, Ibrahim said excitedly. It would be a network of young politicians from different countries who share a commitment to real social change. Exactly. We can learn from each other, support each other, create a global movement for compassionate politics, Jasmine said, now beaming with hope. Congressman, Ibrahim said, your passion for justice reminds me why I entered politics in the first place. Thank you for renewing my own inspiration, and you have shown me that I am not alone in this fight, Jasmine replied, that there are other leaders who understand that politics is about service, not self-service. Anderson Cooper shook his head in admiration. You are demonstrating the kind of leadership the world desperately needs. Most importantly, Ibrahim said, we are showing that age does not determine wisdom, and that personal experience of hardship can create more effective leaders. Thank you, Ibrahim, Jasmine said, her voice full of gratitude, for reminding me that tears in politics are not a sign of weakness, but of strength. Thank you, Jasmine, for showing me that even in a powerful country like America, the fight for justice continues. That gives me hope for Africa. When the show ended, social media immediately exploded. The moment Jasmine Crockett cried upon hearing Ibrahim's story about his sister Fatou went viral within hours. The hashtag #DJasmine, cries Ibrahim inspires, began trending worldwide. I have never seen such a genuine moment in American politics, tweeted one veteran political journalist. Jasmine Crockett showed that politics can have heart. In Congress, Jasmine's colleagues approached her after watching the show. Jasmine, you were brave to show emotion like that, said Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. You humanized politics in a way we rarely see. It wasn't strategy, Jasmine replied honestly. It was just human. Ibrahim reminded me why we do this. In Burkina Faso, citizens celebrated seeing their president touch the heart of an American leader. President Ibrahim showed the world that Africa has leaders with wisdom and compassion, said a university student in Ouagadougou. In the next 48 hours, Jasmine's office received more than 15,000 emails from Americans inspired by the program. Thank you for showing that politicians can be real, wrote one Ohio mother. My son asked if he could grow up to be a politician like you. Ibrahim also received messages from young leaders around the world. President, your example inspires us to be more open about our personal motivations, wrote a young Canadian lawmaker. A week after the program, Jasmine officially announced her trip to Burkina Faso. I will learn how a country with limited resources can put in place reforms that rich America still resists, she said at a press conference. And I will bring concrete proposals for cooperation between our peoples. Ibrahim, for his part, was organizing an international conference of young leaders in October. Jasmine showed me that a global movement for caring politics is possible, he said in an interview. Now let's make it a reality. The program had planted the seeds of something much bigger than a simple televised conversation. 6 months after the program that touched millions of hearts, Jasmine Crockett was in Ouagadougou attending the first Global Young Leaders Conference. Organized by Ibrahim Traoré. I never imagined that an emotional moment on TV could generate an international movement, she said during her opening speech. The event brought together 127 young politicians from 67 countries, all united by a commitment to humanizing global politics. Ibrahim taught me that showing vulnerability does not weaken leadership, it strengthens it, Jasmine continued, receiving a standing ovation. Their partnership had yielded impressive concrete results. We have put in place an exchange program that has already brought 47 innovative governance methods between our countries, Dr. Ouedraogo reported. Jasmine is piloting a Burkina Faso model of restorative justice in 3 cities in Texas. Speaking on the final day of the conference, Ibrahim reflected on an extraordinary journey. 6 months ago, Jasmine cried when she heard the story of my sister Fatou. Those tears planted the seed of a movement that is transforming global politics. Today, we have a network of 200 young leaders committed to caring politics, he continued. We have proven that emotion and effectiveness are not opposites, they are complementary. Jasmine, sitting in the front row, smiled through tears, but this time with pure joy. Ibrahim transformed my pain into global purpose, she said in a final interview. He showed that real leadership can connect hearts across continents. A year later, a documentary about their meeting won an Emmy. The Fatou moment, as it became known, became a symbol of a new political era. 2 people showed the world that politics can have a soul, the critics said, and inspired an entire generation to govern with heart. In their respective offices, Jasmine in Washington and Ibrahim in Ouagadougou, both kept photos of that. First virtual meeting, a daily reminder that politics is about people, not power. Jasmine explained to visitors Ibrahim had framed a message Jasmine sent after the show. Thank you for showing me that a leader's tears are the seeds of change. The world had witnessed the birth of a new form of leadership, one that was not afraid to show humanity in the pursuit of justice. 2 people showed the world that politics can have a soul, the critics said, and inspired an entire generation to govern with heart. In their respective offices, Jasmine in Washington and Ibrahim in Ouagadougou both kept photos of that. First virtual meeting, a daily reminder that politics is about people, not power. Jasmine explained to visitors Ibrahim had framed a message Jasmine sent after the show. Thank you for showing me that a leader's tears are the seeds of change. The world had witnessed the birth of a new form of leadership, one that was not afraid to show humanity in the pursuit of justice.